Mendoza obviously is not a perfect prospect. There's no perfect prospect.
That was just something that teams just salivate over.
I love you, Kenny Pickett. You're my franchise quarterback forever.
I think you heard my comp a little bit. I did say Joe Burrow a little bit. Hello, welcome to Football X's and O's, our back-to-school, new off-season weekly tech show giving you a look at college football stars set to take the NFL by storm. It's our first show. We'll take a deeper look into projected number one overall pick, Fernando Mendoza. I'm Ryan Sue, alongside me is NFL expert David Scott. And just like that, David, it's the NFL draft season, and Mendoza has to be the guy to talk about.
Yeah, honestly, I think the NFL draft season is my favorite part of the NFL season. It's just all these new guys coming around, lots of guys to talk about. I mean, there's so many more college players than there are NFL players, so we can pick out some diamonds in the rough. But yeah, Fernando Mendoza is the obvious first choice.
Fernando Mendoza, he's the clear-cut number one quarterback in this class. There's really no one close to him, obviously, for this 2026 draft class. Heisman Trophy winner, national champion. Describe why he's the number one clear-cut option for this draft.
Yeah, you're right. There really is no other option for that number one pick. And of course, when you get a team like the Raiders in there, you have to take quarterback. They've been desperate for one. And Mendoza's really just a prototypical NFL prospect. He's got that size and frame that you look at for a franchise quarterback. He's a pretty good decision maker, and his accuracy is really what you love about him. He's got pinpoint accuracy. He doesn't really miss with his throws. The football is always where you want it. He is really just a great quarterback to place into kind of a bad situation because you know he's going to do pretty well with what he's got. I mean, he got dropped into Indiana, who obviously had resurged by the time he got there, but they were an up-and-coming program. You hope that if you're the Raiders, he can help build your team as well.
Oh, I mean, throughout the season, 41 touchdowns, and I don't think he had a game that he had more than one interception, too. So throughout the season, you just saw his IQ on full display, and he was playing with guys that weren't five-star recruits. A lot of the teams that he was facing, Miami, they had a bunch of five-star recruits. For Indiana, they didn't really have that for Mendoza.
Yeah, no, they really built that team from the ground up using guys out of the transfer portal, using under-recruited guys. Let's not forget, Fernando Mendoza wasn't a highly recruited prospect either. He, barely makes his way onto Cal, does pretty well at Cal, and then transfers over to Indiana where he becomes the superstar that he is. If he doesn't make that jump to Indiana, I don't think we're talking about him as a first-round prospect. I'm not sure if we're even talking about him as, a day two prospect. But he was pretty solid at Cal, but he takes his big step up at Indiana. He looked really good in that system. He did really well just, against high-level talent against him. So that's good when you're playing against high-level opponents and you're showing that you're still that same quarterback. If he was going up against, the likes of that Miami defense and he was not playing well, then you'd maybe be scratching your head a little bit about him as the number one quarterback. But he had no trouble with guys like Ruben Bain, who are going to be possibly the number two pick right behind him. So I feel confident in him as the number one quarterback. He's not a perfect prospect, but he is a really, really good prospect, and I think he's deserving of that number one.
Yeah, let's talk about, you said it best, Ruben Bain, that competition, but let's talk about the college football playoff. I mean, he had 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. He just balled out against Oregon, against, Alabama, and then obviously, we had a little bit of tough time here and there against Miami, but that team is just ferocious on defense. Talk to me about, his attributes, the way he handled himself in the college football playoff, and the grit that he showed as well.
Yeah, I think grit is a good term. He really does not fold under pressure. When he's in that big moment, it doesn't really faze him, and you really, really want that out of your franchise quarterback. Now, when he's under pressure physically on defense, that's another story, and we'll talk about that more in detail. But when he's in the big moment, he's not fazed, and that's really good. He's very composed. He's very, you look at him in those interviews, and he speaks so freely. He that's part of his personality, where he's just not, he doesn't crack at these things.
Going to Miami, what a better story. How Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes, fantastic team. They have great leadership, and they're extremely tough on defense. It's going to be a great matchup.
He's very emotionally steady. I know that sounds like weird to be highlighting that out of a prospect. That is very important when you get in there. You want guys with good character, especially with someone who's going to be the leader of your football team. The quarterback is always a leader. He's going to be a captain, probably day one. So that maturity, that stability, that ability to move under pressure, that's really good. We saw that throughout the playoff. He's not turning over the ball when he is in those big moments. He is continuing to march down the field. I mean, 8 touchdowns in 3 football games?
Yeah.
That's really good stuff. He ran in for another touchdown. you got to feel really confident that the Raiders probably in year one are not going to be in many of those big situations. But if they take those steps forward and you get into those playoff scenarios, you got a guy who knows how to play in that pressure.
Oh, the grit was on full display, and you know what? That rushing touchdown on that 4th down against Miami, that was just something that teams just salivate over. The fact that, okay, Mendoza doesn't really have that running ability, but sometimes if he has to scramble, he can do it.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to put his body on the line if he has to. He is really good when the pressure is coming down in the pocket of he's going to get the throw out anyway. If you're coming in and you're going to take his head off, he's not fazed by that. He's going to get the ball out to make that play. He's not going to crumble under the pressure if he's got a Ruben Bain bearing down on him. And we saw that in the playoff as well. He was able to get those throws off while he was getting lit up. So that's really good. And yeah, if he's got to get out of the pocket and take some hits while he's running to try and get a touchdown, he's going to do that too. His rushing ability kind of reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger, where he's not very mobile. He's not that quick, but he's got the big frame, and he's going to go out there and just fight for the first down when he has to. He's not the quickest guy. He doesn't have great legs, but he wants that first down. And if he's got his eyes on it, he's going to go get it.
There's so many positives I like with Mendoza. Obviously, the accuracy. I think the intermediate game, too, I really like about Mendoza. But let's talk about, maybe some, weaknesses that he has in his game. Describe, the type of weaknesses that you see in his game, in college football.
Yeah, this is where we're going to go to the whiteboard. And Mendoza obviously is not a perfect prospect. There's no perfect prospect. I don't know if we could look back at maybe someone like Andrew Luck was the last time when we look at a guy where there's really no downside, where he's just a perfect prospect. Mendoza is a great prospect, but he's in no way perfect. And there's one reason why there's a few question marks about his ability in the NFL, and that is the style of the offense that Indiana runs. So they're RPO-heavy. RPO is run-pass option. So let's just put together a standard formation here. We got 5 guys on the line. Mendoza back there, running back next to him. Let's go 2 guys out wide on the left, 1 on the right. That's only going to be 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so we'll put, let's say, a tight end on the line. Fairly standard formation here. Now, the run-pass option is basically like a quick-hitting play action, except you have the ability to go to the running back. In play action, obviously, you're just faking it to the running back. So coming through here, let's say this was an inside RPO, and we want, let's say, a slant here, outside, and something like that.
Yeah.
And then our tight end is going to go into block. Now, RPOs are especially effective in college because it's quick hitters. You can get around some of the inexperienced guys, and it's easy for a quarterback to make a decision. It's not a very complex offense. And in this version of college football, that's kind of where things are going. You want things dumbed down because guys are obviously moving all over the place. You're not really a franchise quarterback in college anymore. So it's easy to, all right, I'm snapping the ball, my running back's coming across, I'm reading the field, my slant's open, I'm going to send it there. Or things are covered, pressure's coming down, I'm going to bail it out to my running back, we're going to get it off there. Indiana runs this a lot, and what is also effective with RPO is having contested catch receivers. And Indiana had a couple guys that Mendoza could just chuck the ball up to, and they would come down with the football. So what this highlights in a good way is quick decision making. Mendoza has the ability to make the quick decision to either take his first or second read or hand the ball off. That's good. We like that. But at the same time, it also does not really equate to the pressure or reads that you're going to be getting in an NFL-style offense. Now, to give Mendoza some more leeway on this, another prospect that we can think of very recently, as soon as last year, who played in heavy RPO style was Jackson Dart. Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin played very heavy RPO, and that was a big concern for him. We were saying, all right, maybe he's going to go in the second round because we're not sure if that's going to translate into the NFL. And then he was pretty solid. Now, again, while we're bouncing back and forth, Jackson Dart is a much more mobile quarterback than Mendoza is. So he has the ability to run the RPO or turn it into a quarterback option where he can pull it and take it out himself. And also, I would say Dart has maybe a little bit more arm strength than Mendoza has. Now, I don't think I would say Dart was a better prospect coming out of college than Mendoza was. But there are some things where, all right, his transition into being an NFL quarterback was probably a little bit easier based on those traits. Now, if you go and look at some Mendoza tape, go past Indiana, go back to Cal. Cal did not really run a very heavy RPO offense. They were more of a pro-style offense, and he was pretty good in that. Yeah. I would say he looked good in that style of offense. So this is not that concerning to me. This is less concerning to me than it was with Jackson Dart coming out of college. I was low on Jackson Dart because I didn't think he was going to translate into the NFL, and then he did just fine. So this is all right. I don't think this is a huge concern for Mendoza, but it's worth mentioning. Now, the other thing that's worth mentioning for the downside of Mendoza is how he faces pressure. So let's throw out our defense now. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. What do we want to do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We want 2 safeties. That's 9, and then we'll throw like linebackers out wide. All right. Now, when Mendoza faces pressure, he can't really step up in the pocket. That's something that he's got to work on. He doesn't step up well in the pocket. What he likes to do is he likes to kind of bail out of the pocket. Now, I'm going to make a comparison here if you all remember when Kenny Pickett was the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love you, Kenny Pickett. You're my franchise quarterback forever. However, this is something he was really bad at, which is when the pocket was collapsing and pressure was coming in, he would try and spin out to the side, escape through the side. That's never really going to work when that pocket is collapsing around you, and that's really bad. You're going to take a lot of unnecessary sacks if you don't have a great offensive line around you. Do the Raiders have a good offensive line?
No.
All right, so that's
very terrible. So that will be something to look at.
That's something to look at. That's something you can coach out of a player, obviously. It's really easy to get a guy to start stepping up in the pocket, unless you're Kenny Pickett and you never learn. Rest in peace, Kenny. You could have been great.
Yeah, that's the thing, with college football. You have a really good offensive line in college football, but then you have to make the transition. The NFL might be tough with the Raiders.
Exactly. Now, the other thing that's tough with him with pressure is when 2 guys are coming through the A gap. Now, the A gap is right here in between your guard and your center. Let's imagine it's a safety blitz, and we've got 2 guys coming in through the A gap. This is where Mendoza's turnovers come from. Now, you're not going to see a ton of double safety blitz coming into the A gap. That's a rare thing where you're just sending all-out pressure. However, when these guys get through, that forces Mendoza in some quick decisions. He's not a great improviser. So when he gets into these kinds of scenarios, we start seeing that unpreparedness, maybe a little bit of scared emotions coming out, and he kind of gets the ball out in a less than ideal way.
Yeah.
Now, again, you're not going to see a ton of that in the NFL. Obviously, it's going to happen, but I think that is my biggest concern. Not the RPO, it's his improvisational skills. When the pressure comes bearing down on him, when he needs to either step up or get out or make a quick read or get the ball away, that's where my concern comes in. And we might see some issues with that in his first year at the Raiders, assuming he goes to the Raiders. He's going to the Raiders. But that could be an issue just because he's going to have a tough offensive line around him. He's going to be under pressure. How is he going to grow and adapt to that? I don't think he's going to have a problem with it, but that's my concern so far.
That's the thing, I think, before the snap gets, sent to him, I feel like he's really good in terms of, dissecting a defense, reading out the defense. So that will be something that Mendoza will have to do pre-snap to see, is there a blitz coming? Is it going to be a surprise blitz? He has to realize that in the next level as well.
Yeah, I think he's going to be just fine, growing into that and learning. He's still, he's not one of these older prospects who's 24 coming into the NFL. He's still young. I believe he's 22. So he's going to be fine with that. Tom Brady and the Raiders are going to put a good staff around him to try and get him better. And Clint Kubiak, I think, is a really good resource for him. He's going to scheme up some fun stuff for him. So as they rebuild their line, as they get some weapons, and as they coach up Mendoza, I don't think this is going to be a problem in his game. This is just what we're seeing right now.
Obviously, there's also best fits. Obviously, Raiders are at number 1. There are other teams that could use a quarterback. You probably don't see anyone trading up for Mendoza. You think, the Raiders will not trade away that pick.
I think the asking price is going to be way too high, yeah. And also the Raiders, that's what they need. They need a quarterback. They need a franchise quarterback. There's no reason to trade out of this. There are other teams that I think might be better fits for Mendoza, where I think he could go plug in right away, obviously. But yeah, the Raiders are the best option. But you look at a team like the Jets, obviously they could use a Mendoza. The Cardinals could really use a quarterback. I think the Steelers would love a guy like Fernando Mendoza, but obviously they're down at around 20, so there's no chance. They would have to give up multiple first rounds to get there. But I could see him being very good on plenty of teams. It's just, would the Raiders ever consider getting extra picks to get out of Mendoza? Next year's quarterback class is good. It could be enticing to get some picks next year, but you got a slam dunk right here. You might as well take it.
Yeah, and they were completely terrible. The quarterback position was brutal. Geno Smith was terrible throughout the year last year. You take Mendoza, you have all this cap space, to get a free agent, a wide receiver, an offensive lineman. And also, you don't want to give up star talent. You're not going to give him up for free. But Max Crosby, he might be a guy that's in the trade market. You could fetch, at least one, if not 2 first-round picks for Max Crosby and help the offense for Mendoza.
Yeah, there's lots of things you could do with the Raiders, and I'm sure down the line we'll sit down and we'll talk about how we can rebuild the Raiders with Mendoza at quarterback. And yeah, it's a great idea, trading Crosby, because he doesn't want to be there, so they might be forced into moving him. That gets you even more help for Mendoza in the form of 1 or 2 first-round picks. I think the Raiders have a bright future. They finally have a decent coach coming in there, more than decent. I think Kubiak is a fantastic coach, and he's an excellent offensive mind. So you got a great coach in there finally. You get some good pieces around who should be a great rookie quarterback for you. And then hopefully we see the Raiders, out of purgatory. They've been there for a while, ever since Derek Carr left, but they were, good once or twice with Derek Carr anyway. So I think this pick of Mendoza is the start of the Raiders taking that step forward again. We want to see them, get into a good position. I think Mendoza can move them there.
Yeah, and they have a foundation. Obviously, the offensive line has to get fixed, but you got Ashton Genty that you picked up last year, 2 years ago, Brock Bowers. So you have 2 really good young players to help out Mendoza. Now, you mentioned Clint Kubiak. Do you think that they can maybe utilize Mendoza like they did with Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl run, or do you think, there'll probably be a little bit different things in this offense?
Yeah, if you look at player comps for Mendoza, some people would liken him to a Joe Burrow. I wouldn't go that far. I would say he's closer to the Jared Goff, Sam Darnold type. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think those guys are, they're franchise quarterbacks right now. I think he's closer to a Sam Darnold, where he is going to be more of a game manager than a game changer. Now, there's a lot of stigma about calling someone a game manager. I think that's totally fine to be a game manager. If you can move the offense and not turn the ball over and win football games, you're a good quarterback. That's all that matters. And if he plays like a Sam Darnold, I think that's exactly what the Raiders want. That's exactly how they can function their offense under Clint Kubiak. Getting the ball out to your receivers, utilizing a good running back like Ashton Genty, allowing Mendoza to just be the field general, to direct the offense, not be anything too flashy, but also be a baseline great quarterback. That's all you need out of him. So I think Kubiak is going to have a lot of fun with Mendoza. I think he's going to look at him like he looked at Sam Darnold and do very similar things that just got the Seahawks a Super Bowl.
I think you heard my comp a little bit. I did say Joe Burrow a little bit with Mendoza. I think he could play like Burrow, but I think he could be a better Sam Darnold. I mean, the decision-making was something that was a little bit of a concern with Darnold. He did have 20 turnovers, so I think, Mendoza could be a little bit better in terms of decision-making department. I mean, he just did not turn the ball over at all. I get it's college, but he was still great in that department, just his IQ. And I think there was like a video of him actually making a terrible throw for once, and he was actually, sick of himself.
As Coach Signetti just stated, that's huge. That's huge, especially that's one of the ways that you're able to lose a game.
You don't see that with a lot of quarterbacks. For him to actually be so down on himself just for one bad throw out of, hundreds of throws, you gotta like that, if you're the Raiders.
Yeah, he's very proud of his craft. And I think if you get a better Sam Darnold, you're in a really good situation, especially with the offensive mind of Clint Kubiak. I think the Raiders are in a great situation here. You get Mendoza in, you add just a few pieces around him, especially on the offensive line, and you take some good steps forward.
All right, that's going to wrap things up here. Football X's and O's back to school. You can catch us every Monday. We also have upcoming off-season content that you can look out for in the future. Please like and subscribe and let us know in the comments what you think of Fernando Mendoza.